Well, hi, this is Lindsay Blue, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson, welcoming you to this week's edition of TV Confidential, radio talk show about television that will welcome back our friend Michelle Danner. Later on this hour, Michelle Danner, legendary acting teacher, one of the most successful and most versatile women working in the entertainment industry today. Michelle's latest film, The Italians, is a comedy drama about the fiery matriarch of an Italian-American family who not only clashes with the girlfriend of her only son when she realizes that she is everything she doesn't want in a wife for her son, but finds herself unpacking a host of other issues with her family, including infidelity, unresolved issues with her own mother, and a serious heart condition that causes her and the rest of her family to reevaluate themselves. Michelle Danner joins us later on in this hour. Hope you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Chuck Harter is with us as we open up our program this week by welcoming Randy Skretvedt. Randy has written several books on the movies and career of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, the latest of which, March of the Wooden Soldiers, the amazing story of Laurel and Hardy's Babes in Toyland, takes you behind the scenes of March of the Wooden Soldiers, a movie originally released in November 1934, just before the start of the Christmas holidays that year, and a movie that has remained a holiday classic on television since the early 1950s. March of the Wooden Soldiers was among the personal favorites of both Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, but it was a movie plagued with a lot of drama behind the scenes, including injuries, a divorce, a barroom fistfight, various illnesses, and a rift that nearly spelled the end of the Laurel and Hardy team. March of the Wooden Soldiers, the amazing story of Laurel and Hardy's Babes in Toyland, is available through Bonaventure Press, bonaventurepress.com. We began our conversation by telling Randy, before we started recording, Randy, and when I first talked to you off mic before we even set up our conversation today, I was telling you about how, for me, March of the Wooden Soldiers is my favorite Laurel and Hardy movie, and I always associate it with either Christmas time or Thanksgiving time, because that's one of the independent stations up in San Francisco. They showed it usually around 10:30 Thanksgiving morning, or in some cases both on Thanksgiving morning and Christmas morning. And I understand that I'm not alone. There's at least one station in New York that has been showing it on Thanksgiving and Christmas almost nonstop for 60 plus years.
Yes, it's WPIX in New York. They first ran it in 1952. And then it went to another station for a while in New York. I think it went to WOR. But since 1963, they have run it at Thanksgiving almost every year between 1963 and now. There were a couple of years where there was a licensing problem, and it went to, I think it went to TBS, a superstation. Anyway, it wasn't on WPIX for a couple of years, but then it came back, and aside from one year when they decided to run all football-themed movies because they had a big football game that Sunday, and they got a lot of flack from people who were complaining about that because it's a Thanksgiving tradition. So they've been running it pretty much every year since 1963 at Thanksgiving, and now they run it on Christmas Day as well. And since there is also now a colorized version, they will usually run the black and white at 9 o'clock, and then after that they usually have a marathon of The Honeymooners with Jackie Gleason, and then after that's done, then they run the colorized version. So they run both versions.
Chuck was telling me before we called you, Randy, the colorized version of March of the Wooden Soldiers, it's very sharp, it's very well done.
There's two different ones, actually, and I like the one that's more recent.
Which is that, Randy?
Let's see. There was one that was done by Good Times Video, and then there was one done by Genius Entertainment, and that is the one that is more readily found these days. Usually around Christmas time when they bring out the Christmas DVDs and Blu-rays, you'll find March of the Wooden Soldiers. Obviously, it's it has Santa Claus in it, and even though Barnaby, Henry Brandon, has a line in it where he says, "Christmas present in the middle of July," which tells you that it actually doesn't take place at
Nobody
but
caught that.
Laurel and Hardy are making toys for Santa Claus in advance of Christmas, and of course it was released on November 29th of 1934, so it was released right around the holiday season.
And yet, if I'm speaking of the line Barnaby mentions about making Christmas presents in July, and if I remember correctly, one of the takeaways I got from March of the Wooden Soldiers, The Amazing Story of Laurel and Hardy's Babes in Toyland, your book, Randy, by Bonaventure Press, one of the things I learned is that the movie was originally scheduled for release during Eastertime.
Right, yes. And a lot of things delayed the production March of the Wooden Soldiers. At one point, Stan was going through a rather messy divorce, and he had kind of hastily signed an agreement. I actually have the document. I own the document now, where he basically gave his soon-to-be ex-wife 50% of everything he earned. And then he thought about it afterwards and thought, that was maybe a little too generous, and tried to get her to modify the agreement. Well, of course, she wasn't going to do that. And so for a while, Stan essentially went on strike. He maintained that he was having health problems and wasn't able to work, because he just figured, well, I won't be making any money, so she won't be getting any money, and that'll make her come to terms. But eventually he decided that maybe half a salary was better than no salary, so he came back to work. And so that sort of put the kibosh on the the planned Easter release. Also, as you know, during the production, I think it was in October, Stan fell. I've heard that he was doing something on top of the old lady's shoe. There's a gigantic set. The sets are just amazing for this movie. And part of the set was a big shoe where the old woman who lived in the shoe lived. And supposedly Stan was on top of it and slipped and fell and tore some ligaments in one of his legs. Now, there is no such scene in the movie, so if that's what happened, then that scene was deleted. But in any event, they thought he was going to be better in about a week, and actually it turned out to be over a month before he was ready to come back to work, because he was hobbling around on crutches. And that put a significant crimp in Hal Roach's schedule, because he had this gigantic Toyland set which took up 2 sound stages, and you couldn't get rid of the set. You couldn't strike the set temporarily. It was too big, so that those 2 stages were just not able to be used, and that started to have a problem with the other films that he made, because of course he was making other series at the time with Charlie Chase and Our Gang, which we know today as the Little Rascals. But finally Stan did come to work, and after he was all healed up, and at that point they really rushed into production. They were already in mid-October by this point, and they got the whole thing finished and ready for release by November 29th.
It shut down production that summer when Stan hurt his leg, but I understand that second delay turned out to be a blessing in disguise for Henry Brandon, the actor who played Barnaby, who so memorably played Barnaby in March of the Wooden Soldiers, because he was doing a play at the time, and he was shooting scenes for the movie during the daytime, and then he'd have to go do his play at night. So that gave him a little bit of break, which helped his performance in that play, didn't it?
Right. He had just turned 22 when he made Babes in Toyland. And he was appearing in a play called The Drunkard, which was originally an old melodrama going back to the mid-1800s. And it was performed at a place called the Theater Mart, which was basically like a dinner theater. And Prohibition had just ended, so people could have a glass of beer and hiss the villain and cheer the hero. And so Henry was, playing it in a very florid manner. That's where Hal Roach saw him and said, that's the perfect guy for the villain in this movie. And when Hal Roach, he said to Henry, he met him backstage and said, come see me tomorrow. And Henry was still in his old age makeup, playing the role of Squire Cribbs, he had a very similar makeup and costume in the play. And so Mr. Roach was expecting an old man. And so when fresh-faced 22-year-old Henry Brandon came in, Hal Roach was very surprised. But that turned out to be a good thing, as Henry said. As Henry told me, he said, a lot of the old character actors were angry that Roach had hired me, this young kid, instead of one of them, because they were closer to the age of the part. That Barnaby is supposed to be 68 years old, according to the script. But he said, I didn't have the heart to tell them that they wouldn't have been able to do it because they ran me ragged. So, yes, he was doing double duty. He was doing the movie in the morning and the play at night. And as you may know from reading the book, right after they laid everybody off the film because Stan was out of commission, Henry decided to celebrate and went with some of his buddies to a bar, and they began drinking and getting a little argumentative with some other people, and it wound up being a barroom brawl, and Henry and his pals wound up spending the night in jail. And there were newspaper articles about it, which did not please Hal Roach at all, because he was running a family-friendly studio. You know, he made comedies for the whole family, so it didn't look good to have an actor in one of his movies in jail for being drunk and disorderly.
Randy Skretvedt's on the line with us. Randy Skretvedt, entertainment historian, author of Laurel and Hardy, The Magic Behind the Movies, one of several books Randy has written about the movies and the career of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. Randy's most recent book, March of the Wooden Soldiers, The Amazing Story of Laurel and Hardy's Babes in Toyland. Everything you want to know and more about the making of the classic Laurel and Hardy film, known to some of us belovedly as March of the Wooden Soldiers, a classic movie that has an epic story of its own of how it was made and some of the obstacles he had to overcome, some of which Randy just talked about, and more. March of the Wooden Soldiers, The Amazing Story of Laurel and Hardy's Babes in Toyland, available in hardback, also available in other forms through Bonaventure Press, bonaventurepress.com, as well as Amazon.com.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries. Chuck wants to jump in with the question. Before he does that, I want to say, Chuck and I were talking before we called you. This is a beautifully laid out, beautifully put together book, Randy. The photos are amazing alone.
Yes.
Well, yes, it has a beautiful design, and you can thank David Koenig for that. He's the head guy at Bonaventure Press, and he did the layout and the design. And then the cover was done by a guy named Joe Busam, B-U-S-A-M, and he's in Cincinnati. But Dave is in Costa Mesa, California, and he did the layout and design, and I think he just did a gorgeous job.
He did a gorgeous job with the layout, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, Dave does a wonderful job with customer service relations. I know this firsthand because I got a story from one of his customers about the extra mile he went for her. So, Bonaventurepress.com, Bonaventure, Bonaventurepress.com. Chuck.
Oh, hi, Randy. Yeah, I'd like to echo those sentiments. I got the book because I have everything you've done, every edition. I remember going to the silent movie theater when you had the big monster, big edition of your great book on the magic of the movies, and you showed some rare clips, and that was a fun day. Well, it's sort of an observation and a question. In your book, you mentioned that March of the Wooden Soldiers was Stan's favorite Laurel and Hardy movie. And I've read, too, that Babe Hardy liked the films they did with production.
Right.
What was Ollie's opinion of March of the Wooden Soldiers?
Well, I think we have that information about Babe liking the films with production. We have that from a letter from his widow, Lucille, whom I got to know very well for 15 years. I met her in 1971, and we were good friends until she passed away in 1986. And in the book Mr. Laurel and Mr. Hardy, which is the authorized biography of them by John McCabe, there's a series of letters from Lucille. He printed the letters because she was a very good and very vivid writer. And she mentioned that Babe particularly liked the movies that had production. So he liked Swiss Miss, he liked Way Out West, the ones that, that looked like big budget movies. And so I would guess that would be why he counted this among his favorites. There are also many times when both Laurel and Hardy count as their favorite film a movie called The Devil's Brother, or Fra Diavolo, which is like March of the Wooden Soldiers. It's another operetta, and that one was made the year before March of the Wooden Soldiers, and it was a huge hit all over the world.
That's a good one.
So that is really one of the reasons why Roach wanted to make a film from Babes in Toyland, because he thought it would duplicate the success of Fra Diavolo, or The Devil's Brother. Unfortunately, because of the production delays, and Roach having to keep a lot of people on the payroll without being able to get any film shot, that caused the budget to balloon rather drastically, and so it made a profit, but something like $16,000. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but a very modest profit, unlike what The Devil's Brother had made. So unfortunately, it was not the financial success that Hal Roach wanted, and he, in later years, really had a negative opinion of this movie. I think it was mainly because of the memory of all the production hassles that happened during the making of it. But, I interviewed him 2 times at his home in Bel Air. This is back in 1981, January and February of 1981. And before I could ask my first question, he launched into I don't want to say angry, but an aggravated story about Babes in Toyland. And he maintained that the reason he quit making Laurel and Hardy pictures was because of Babes in Toyland. Well, he didn't quit making Laurel and Hardy pictures because they went on for many more years together and made several more films after Babes in Toyland. But that was the way he remembered it. It was an aggravating enough experience for him to still be sort of nursing a grudge about that movie all those years later. He had his own story, another story that he'd written for it. And
that was the reason.
Read it, you kind of go, yeah, I don't think this is going to fly as a children's movie or a musical or a comedy. It's very grim.
Or a Laurel and Hardy movie, because as you just anticipated one of my questions, I mean, look, the original Babes in Toyland operetta was kind of dark to begin with,
Oh, yeah.
But
that's why they have to keep rewriting the story. Every time they make a new TV or film production of it, they come up with a new story. But you couldn't do the original 1903 storyline because it has a shipwreck, it has attempted poisonings, it has the toy maker makes all these toys which are supposed to burst out of their boxes on Christmas morning and kill the children, and then the toys actually stab the toy maker, and he runs into a volcano.
Yeah.
and is burned to death in the volcano. So, yeah, there's a lot of grim stuff. And what's interesting is when you look at reviews of the 1903 production, there's a review in the New York Times and it says, "Oh, children will love this, and they'll be dragging their parents back to see it again a second and third and fourth time." So maybe kids were made of sterner stuff back then. I don't know, but it certainly wouldn't be made today.
It certainly would not be made today. Randy Skretvedt's on the line with us. Randy Skretvedt, entertainment historian, author of many books on the movies and the career of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. Randy's latest book, March of the Wooden Soldiers, The Amazing Story of Laurel and Hardy's Babes in Toyland, available wherever books are sold through Bonaventure Press, bonaventurepress.com, as well as Amazon.com. Chuck Harter is with us. We hope you'll stay with us as we continue our conversation with Randy Skretvedt here on TV Confidential.
Who needs a vacation? Are you ready for an unforgettable getaway? Start packing your bags because Branson, Missouri, the vacation and entertainment capital of the U.S., is calling your name. For just $99 per person, here's what you get. A full 3-day, 2-night stay in a luxury resort hotel. A delicious full breakfast buffet every morning you're here. And when you call right now, free show tickets worth up to $100. That's right, free show tickets to an award-winning show on us. You don't have to leave the country for an amazing vacation. You can drive or fly to Branson and have an incredible time. Whether you bring in the whole family or just planning a romantic escape, this trip is built for you. We guarantee you'll love Branson. This is not a timeshare. It's just an unbeatable vacation deal for only $99 per person. You book now, you can use your tickets anytime this year. You don't even need to know your travel dates to lock in the special price. Hurry, because this offer won't last long. Call our Branson vacation experts today.
800-435-1887. 800-435-1887. 800-435-1887. That's 800-435-1887.